Welcome to the Stash Cast, where innovation meets real estate. Let's dive in.
Hey, Stash, how are you?
I'm great, man. How are you?
All right.
For the folks at home who haven't had a chance to meet you, why don't you give us an idea of who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me on once again. And my name is Ethan Hochberg. I am the co-founder of Marketing Guys, which is just a creative growth agency for AI and technology brands. We offer a pretty specific set of marketing or growth services in like the content and writing and distribution realm and influencer campaign organization and facilitation. By trade, my partner and I have been very interested in content and social media. We became interested in AI at the same time everyone else did and started writing content about it and built up a little bit of an audience on Twitter. We have several accounts that do like cumulatively about 200 million views a year. And we use that as a little bit of a growth engine to promote our business. But honestly, we were doing that way before we even conceptualized the idea of starting a business around it. I met my partner at college. We went to Washington University in St. Louis.
WashU. Nice. Shout out.
Yeah.
So I guess you started just writing content about AI. Like, how did you build the expertise and confidence to be able to confidently put out content without feeling like a fraud and knowing what you're talking about? If that's a fair way to put it.
Yeah, I think whether it's AI or whether it's about food reviews, I think every human will inevitably have that feeling before they put anything out online. And I think one of the things that I've always believed, whether it's business or exercise or sports, it's you just suck. And every time you practice, you suck a little less. So like that's been my outlook on things. Because in the beginning, we definitely sucked a lot more than we do now. And I think the thing about Twitter is really most of the textual platforms like Twitter, LinkedIn, any platform where they're pretty versatile media formats. I always have viewed them, my partner as well, to have very underpriced, what we call underpriced distribution. And I think 1 million views on Twitter is typically more valuable depending on what you're promoting than 1 million views on a short form video. In terms of conversion, it could vary. There's a lot of variability, but we realized in the beginning, because we were writing a lot of great, or at least what we thought was good content, whether it was or it wasn't, we weren't really getting a lot of traffic. And we figured we have to build a distribution network around this and find people with bigger audiences and more credibility than us to like consistently share our content. But to answer your specific question, yeah, I think whether it's content writing or doing anything where other people are going to view what you're doing, it's just like a nature part of the human experience to feel inadequate or whatnot. But I think my partner and I specifically, we were at a place in life where we were like, you know what? We don't really care. I think if you asked me that 10 years ago, I would have had more, yeah, that was a really difficult thing to overcome. But where we were in our life at that point, we were like, we got nothing left to lose.
Yeah. It's like when you have nothing left to lose, you're like, let's throw all caution to the wind and just pull out all stops and go out and make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of like look, I'm not as far along maybe as I have ambitions of being, but I think at this point, when I was younger, I used to think that being intelligent and connected and those sorts of things were like the attributes that kind of mattered. I really think they're just maybe bonuses. I think the people that really want it, are the people that are going to win no matter what they're doing. And I think there's a lot of really brilliant people out there. But it takes a certain kind of person to just be really obsessed. And we were, like I said, we were at a point in life where like a few haters on Twitter was not what was going to stop us. And if anyone who's been on Twitter knows that literally any post has plenty of haters and hate, but even if it's like literally the most brilliant, profound thing you could say, yeah,
somebody's going to find a way to troll it. And that's some people's personality.
I think those are unfortunately the loudest voices in the room on social media right now. But most people that like, and that's actually a good point to highlight about what makes good content in general. Typically saying things that are very logical, sensical, whatever you want to call it, typically doesn't make for great content. Really what makes for great content is making people feel something, right? It could be anger, happiness, sadness, humor, like that's what leads to engagement. And that's how these algorithms work. The more engagement that you receive, particularly early on, is how they know who to share it to. And also they use that data with predictive analytics to say, we should share this to more people. So yeah, there's definitely more nuance, but generally speaking.
So I guess, how did you like hack the algorithms, or how did you figure it out to be able to, because 200 million views is amazing. How'd you do it?
Thank you. Yeah, go.
The Stashcast is brought to you by Needle. What if you could use data and analytics to predict real estate transactions? With Needle, you can. Check it out at needle.us to learn more.
Maybe not giving away the secret sauce, but I'm just curious, how'd you do it?
I think what we were doing is not necessarily something that is so unknown and proprietary. I won't say exactly everything we're doing, but for the most part, it's related to my initial point of that underpriced distribution thing. So if you wanted to pay an influencer on Instagram to make a video promoting your brand or anything that has 1 million followers, it would probably cost a fair amount of money. But, writing a tweet, sharing something on Twitter, it's not super hard. It's not super laborious. And that's why I say underpriced, because I think you could actually, if you really put the time in to find a lot of profiles who are related to your target demographic, and almost like build a distribution network where you can essentially say, all right, I'm going to pay all these people X amount of dollars per month to share all my content. And we realized we needed to have way more organization around it, like in terms of who was sharing what and et cetera, et cetera. So really it's two components to content nowadays, right? Because content is super saturated. It's all algorithmic. It's good content, but really what's way more important is distribution. And that you could post the greatest thing in the world. If you're not Sam Altman, at least in the AI space, no one's seeing that. Only around like 1 to 5% of your followers actually will see anything that you post on average on any given platform. That's how most people look at their feeds, and their feeds are not necessarily like who they're following. It's more just an amalgamation of their prior activity.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have anything, but we didn't figure out it was something we were forced to realize pretty early on that, hey, like, we're putting a lot of work into these posts and we're getting like 30 views. We're not going to make a lot of money from that. We have to figure out, we kind of have to spend money to make money here. And that was like the thinking behind that, I think. And yeah.
So I guess, how do you go out and monetize your service then?
Yeah. So in the beginning, we were selling like a smaller variant of what we're doing now, and people bought it. And then like after a week, we were like, I don't know why people are buying this. We got to refund all these people their money, because we just weren't driving any results. It was like $150 a month or something, and we were guaranteeing a certain amount of impressions. And we realized that, and we're not even close to the brightest social media minds, but we've been doing this a long time. And even we like didn't realize in the thick of it, social media is pretty unpredictable. Like you can't guarantee metrics. And so we were spending however many dollars a month. It just kept increasing for the distribution funnel. We were eating it for a long time. And until we started to realize, wow, so we have these 3 Twitter accounts, and we also have a directory of AI tools. It's called AI Marketing Directory. We get like 10 to 15 AI companies submitting like a form to be on our directory every day, 7 days a week. And we were like, this is like pretty, valuable, right? We have all these people's email addresses. And we also have the Twitter that's like, maybe in the beginning wasn't making any money. It was also generating inbound and interest and all these things. And we were like, that's the real value here. If we could build services to help these companies, we'll have to, it's really, I don't know if I assume you've heard about Hormozi's recent book, Money Models. And it's the basis. We didn't realize this until after, because I'm a big Hormozi fan, and I was listening to what he was explaining about. It's the basis for a great money model, because we don't have to work super hard to be able to pitch people our services. And so we have all this inbound, we have all these leads. It just took a while for the numbers to flip. So now we're making a good amount in ad revenue alone. We do basic paid collaborations on the Twitter accounts, and our whole sales funnel So we have marketing guys, which is the core business. For that, we do founder-led content and distribution, and we organize larger scale campaigns. We sell smaller tier services to get people in the door and build a relationship with them. And then eventually we pitch them on the bigger stuff. So that was
Sure,
like
it's
our
an
whole
upsell.
sales.
It's a natural kind of grow up into an upsell. And
And-
that works. It's validating because you've earned the trust of your clients because you've delivered for them before. You're not saying, hey, here's a big offer, take it or leave it up front. Hey, just let's try this. Let's see how it works. And then let's try a little more. And then bam, you've got a large value customer. And because you're both getting value from what you guys are delivering. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Yeah. And look, I think in any service business, this is true. Like a service business implies that you might have proprietary methods of fulfillment, but generally speaking, if it's a service, you're not the only person in the world doing that. And we identified early on through these kind of core distribution channels, the frontline distribution channels, the Twitter accounts, the directory, that this is a major problem that most of these AI companies are facing. But we by no means were the only people to realize that. And so we were like, if we were going to sell people on services that are super lucrative, we needed to have more credibility. There's three ways we were going to achieve that. One is we're writing all this content about AI. We have the directory. So people see us and they're like, all right, maybe they're not like AI researchers, but they obviously can just like, they're passionate about AI. Like they could have a conversation with us and understand what we're saying. And two, like we had worked with a lot of these people before. So they know we're not like unethical people. They paid us for stuff we delivered, whether they were happy with it or not. That's like a different question, but we didn't do wrong by anybody. Sales, which I'm sure and anyone who's built a business knows, it's just a numbers game, right? So whether it's warm or it's cold or it's this, it might be a different numbers game, but they're all numbers games. And like we figured that for the more lucrative stuff, the cold numbers game wasn't going to work. And we learned that pretty early on. Last thing I know, last thing I'll say is we're a little bit of a disadvantage in the sense that we're selling to AI companies, right? So these people are very easily able to know something's written by AI. So we needed to put more work into personalizing we do a bunch of cold, but we do only cold for the lower tier things, right? So collabs, the directory, etc. But all this kind of we didn't think through, like most of this stuff just happened along the way, which is the coolest part about it.
So it's like what I'm hearing is the hardest part is just getting started. And then from there, it's the harder you work, the luckier you get. As long as you're grinding and paying attention to the results that you're getting, you can make incremental change as you're going along and then be able to take it from self-funded bootstrap into something that is actually generating revenue. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I personally feel there's two, like at this point, I've been doing this for 2 years. We saw pretty much all of our growth in like month 20 to 24. And there's two, I think the second hardest part is starting. I think nowadays it's becoming easier and easier because of all the technological accessibility. And I think the hardest part is not quitting. If you're willing to do those two things, I think no matter what your craft is, I really believe you can be successful. And I think maybe if you're super intelligent, maybe you could be more successful. But at the end of the day, we're all going to die pretty soon anyways. So like, it's not a competition. I think nowadays people assume that if you're a small business, you're at a major disadvantage. And in certain areas you are, right? Bigger companies have more money. They're typically smarter. They typically have more resources, but there's one thing that they don't have that small businesses have, and it's just flexibility. We could just try a million different things. And if they don't work, just try something else. And because of how cheap tools have become nowadays, like you could try a million different things, not bankrupt yourself. No one knows who you are. And big companies generally can't do that.
So how, as you grow, as you're thinking about it, and I guess the question is, how do you then maintain that agility and flexibility as you grow? Most of the growth has happened in the past, say, 4 months. Starting a brokerage practice, it takes 2 years of grinding to just start to get some deal flow. And I experienced the same thing. How do you try and keep that agility as you grow? and scale?
I will say, just to backtrack, it was like 4 to 6 months. In the first 18 to 20 months, we were growing. We just didn't realize we were, right? Because the money wasn't there. My partner and I were taking out loans from like our friends and our family members and stuff like that. But we didn't realize in the background, we were building something that was more sustainable. You just overlook those things like the Twitter accounts, right? The followings were growing a lot. We were still building relationships with people. We weren't maybe profiting. And we were just building all these distribution engines. And it got to a point where I'll get to your question about how do we keep growing, because honestly, that's obviously where we're at now. Is I know this is a classy problem to have, but we're genuinely inundated in like inbound. Like I try to do outbound. I really don't have enough time. Like we're experiencing true growing pains right now. You know, I think my partner and I are of the belief we disagree on about pretty much everything, which is we're great friends, but we have different personality styles and we compromise a lot to find a solution. But we agree on one thing, which is we really hate spending money when we don't have to. So especially because of everything, the tech out there, we need to get more people involved. We're at the point right now as we speak of who to do it. Because nowadays I feel like adding people to the team is a major risk or it's a major potential reward or risk. Or you find the right person, it could exponentially grow. You find the wrong person, it could set you back. And especially at this stage in our company where we're doing well, but we're not like $1 billion company. I think because right now, like initially we were like, all right, let's lean more into sales, right? If we can just sell more, we can make more money. And then we were like, all right, it doesn't really matter if we sell more, if we can't fulfill for all of them. But right now where we're at is we need to build more distribution channels, whether that's social media accounts, more traffic to the directory. That's what's going to allow us financial leeway to say, okay, we're going to get salespeople and we're going to be able to fulfill for them too. And so that's the enigma we're at now. I don't know if that answers your question exactly though.
How did you build your initial sales? Were you using Go High Level or what CRM were you using?
None. We had all we were doing. Well, so we in a perfect world, we would have a CRM and we could do email and LinkedIn, something like that. But really, we were just sending cold Twitter DMs by hand.
Wow.
And we were.
What was the pitch?
We were pitching them on the lower tier services, right? So here are the ways we make money. In terms of the service aspect, because we make ad revenue, but I'm not including that in that. Yeah. So we do paid collaborations on Twitter. Company will pay us just make content about them.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's interesting because our audience was built up on that type of content to begin with, right? So we built an audience just talking about AI tools. So there's really very little difference between like our sort of what we consider virality type content and like our collaboration content. Some of our best posts are literally just us saying, wow, look at this new AI tool. Look at what you could do with it. Here's some videos of us doing it. And that's what these companies want to pay for. And that's one of the things that we just didn't really think through in advance. It just happened naturally because that's what we always wanted to make content about to begin with. So for example, like a traditional influencer, like for example, in the food space, right? It's way more obvious, like when they're doing a paid collaboration, right? Let's say they eat like all these fancy foods and all of a sudden you see me like, I don't know, like wings or Buffalo Wild Wings. Like they've been paid to do that. For us, it's way less obvious. I think people with a brain, which is a lot of people, like maybe can figure it out, but I don't think it bothers people as much because that's literally what we say.
That's what you built your brand on.
It's paid collaborations. And for that, it's like more like hundreds of dollars per unit. And then we also have the directory. And on that, we have a $150 a month offer. Now that's not the previous one I was talking about, which is it's a recurring offer, $150 a month, where you get one thread a month and one email feature because we have an email list through a directory that's been grown by Twitter of AI users, not the one of leads. That's like these. And then we also have I'll say what I was going to say after this, our queue of people submitting to our directory is massive. And we were like, all right, we can't get to all these people. So let's just do like a $19 or $20 one-time offer. They'll expedite it and they'll also get featured in these email features. We'll have one promoting the company and then we'll have a section that says also, these are like these uncut, like hidden gems of the week or whatever. And we'll regularly feature them in there. It was meant to be like, if you're looking at that, you're like, yeah, this is like not a lot of money for a decent amount of value companies, like really legitimate companies ranging from Lovable to Lindy to Alibaba, some, most are probably smaller than, but as anyone who follows the news about AI, these companies have raised millions of dollars, a lot of them. And so, like I said, it's a numbers game, right? So you have 100 companies that you all have a good relationship with. They don't hate you. They know you're not a scammer. You pitch them all on the higher tier stuff. Maybe one or two of them or three of them will say yes. And that could be like 12 grand a month. And so that was the thinking behind it all. It's still developing, but yeah, that was how we were able to get our nose in the door, I would say.
It's amazing. You've grown it into an incredible business for yourself and your partner, and that's phenomenal.
Yeah. Look, we've always been, my partner and I, we've known each other for 10 years. He was a senior when I was a freshman at college. And we met like within my first week of college, and we've been like thick as thieves for a while. We started like a million different things. All of them failed very miserably. And that's why it leads me to believe that you stick with it. And people try to think they could figure it all out in the beginning. At this point, I accept that I don't have anything figured out, and I never will. You just have to do things with good intentions that don't hurt your reputation, hopefully. Sure. And just analyze the data along the way, and it was like, it was just, if you were looking at it at the outside, you'd be like, wow, this kind of flowed really seamlessly. When in reality, in my partners, we were like fighting for our life. I mean,
it was a train wreck.
Yeah. We're above all else, we love what we're doing. Like being able to check all the metrics and connect with people that are brilliant. I think a lot of people that sell these really brilliant technology companies, they try to prove to them they understand technology. And our mantra from the beginning was like, we're not going to try to outsmart these people. In fact, we're going to try and stroke their ego as much as possible, right? And accept that these are some of the most brilliant minds in the world. We're not going to try to tell them how to build their product. We're going to tell them, like, based on what you're trying to build, this is how we feel you should market it, because that's our expertise. And I think people really have liked that whole style of communication.
What was the first form of content where you're like, oh, wow, that just went viral? That, like, it surprised you, or when you were, oh, what, we're onto something here?
Yeah, I remember our biggest post ever was a thread that had between 2 and 3 million views. And it was when like Grok, this was a while ago, right? Grok 4 just came out. So this is when Grok 3 came out. It was a thread about how to use Grok for trading or something. We had 10 prompts and it just went very viral. We gained over 1,000 followers in a day. And,
Wow.
And the interesting thing, yeah, that was when we knew we were onto something, because my partner and I, whatever people think about, like prompting generally isn't super as valuable as people make it to believe in concept. And I think people don't really realize that until they use it for a little bit. And we found it super interesting that those types of posts were the biggest one, like things that like were helping people do really simple things. This is a more macro problem that we've identified. I think the biggest bridge that AI needs to cross is like most people that these AI companies need to sign up for their tools to become billion-dollar companies, like generally hate AI, and like people that create AI, at least in the States. And like I see it online, like all these people that aren't idiots, like just criticizing without actually knowing what they're talking about. And so our whole thing was, we want to be relatable. We want to be like a normal dude. We want to be funny. We like sports, right? If someone posts something about a sports thing, let's just give some like, obviously we want to be professional, give our political views or something. Like, sure. Yeah. And I think that was like how it all just flowed naturally. But that post from Grok was a big one for us.
What form of content have you found to be the most high performing? Is it Reels? Is it TikTok? Or does it depend on what the message is?
Yeah, I think it depends more on the demographic. So we actually built a TikTok up to 35K followers, like way in the beginning, like doing like kind of a more less legitimate variant of what we're doing now on Twitter. And we stopped using it. As it pertains to our Twitter stuff, I think the best performing content is just showing the thing in action. I think that's the trajectory that marketing is going. It's like all these professional graphics and stuff like that, they don't convert well, because I think people overlook that the average viewer is, in any niche, is a lot more intelligent than people give them credit for. And they're way more able to sniff out some marketing stuff then
Ben,
yeah. So I think walkthrough videos, those have been our best pieces of content. That's pretty much all we do now. Let's like screen share videos of us just like doing what we're saying you could do.
yeah. Do you do it on the phone on a phone so it's easy to repost and fit the format, or you do it on your desktop and then just edit the video?
So now we have a content team that kind of cranks it out. We do posts every single day, but in the beginning, when it was just me and my partner, we would do it on a computer. Like we would get like a screen share, like a screen recording software, like
Yeah.
CapCut or whatever it is.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. What are some of the platforms or tools that you've seen that you think are really, you're just like, wow, that's awesome?
Like AI tools.
Yeah.
So for content specifically, and I've seen some really cool tools with video generation. Can you give me maybe what type of thing or what specific task, and maybe it help me?
Like,
There's just so
I found that Perplexity is really good if you want to like get a very thorough overview of a topic with links back to things. Whereas if you ask ChatGPT about something, it will just make things up. Whereas Perplexity will be like, here's the source. And it's gotten better, ChatGPT has, but maybe I use it a lot for research and then turning around things for the podcast and my sales
Yeah.
efforts as well.
So this would all probably be a big generalization, but generally speaking, I think Claude is one of the better research tools for content writing, depending on what you're trying to do in that realm. I think actually GPT, people don't give it a lot of credit. So we have a lot of embedded workflows that we just go back to. This is what we were doing in the beginning. A lot of the content is generated by AI. Our whole workflow for that is we do the real research to get good topics and curate the topics, but we have subsequent workflows to craft a structure. And then we have a real writer go in and say, okay, this is our personal style, which at this point they know. It's just like some random dude from high school who happens to know a good amount about AI, just give his little touch to it. That's how we make most of our content. But for our business itself, operations wise, Grok has been transformative, especially if you're trying to do marketing on Twitter, right? So for example, we don't spend so much time looking for influencers or stuff like that. We're able to find them in minutes and with Grok. And more importantly, we have workflows to validate them, right? So if my partner and I looked at a profile at this point, we'd be able to gather a lot of things from that, right? How connected this person is, how much engagement they get, are they botting their views? But we just don't really have time to do that for 100 profiles, right? I think that's actually a critical point that I feel like people really a lot of people don't really understand about AI, and it's not their fault. It's product of the marketing. Like AI doesn't create skill. AI makes skill more valuable and lack of skill more costly. So if you have skills already, and you know what it takes to do something, and you start saying, okay, I want to see how the AI help me do it faster, you're going to be a lot better at it than someone who just decided, wow, you could use AI for making content too. Let's just see if they could just make it so I don't have to learn that skill. And so, yes, but I think for operations, Grok has been transformative. Research, Claude, writing, I think GPT and Perplexity. But once again, these are big generalizations. So you can use all those technically for all those things if you wanted to.
Sure. Sometimes I'll open up ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and just run the same question back through all of them, and then run the generated content back through all of them as well to get like a very refined piece.
No, that's smart. Yeah. And for big household name AI tools, I don't know if you've heard of Veed. Is that for like video generation? We don't use it to create. I talked about this actually on a recent podcast that I was on like a month ago. We use it a lot to brainstorm. Their big sell is like creating avatars, right? Which a lot of people, believe it or not, are doing now. But we use it to brainstorm. If we have a video idea, let's just create something super quick so we can like brainstorm formats and stuff like that. I like that a lot. I've seen a lot of really cool tools do Figma structures for organizing AI products. Super cool. Almost like you're looking at a canvas. We actually did a collaboration with one of them recently called Hatch. There's another one called Nemo. that I like. There's a lot of really cool stuff that people are doing, a lot of creative things out there. And that's part of the reason it was difficult for me to answer the question initially. It's because pick any topic, there's probably like 50 AI tools right now.
Where
Yeah,
do you
that
think
doesn't-
there's oversaturation in the market for AI tools?
I think there's a lot of no code tools that are trying to compete with Lovable and Lindy. And not Lindy, you might more consider autonomous agent, but I think there's definitely a lot of writing tools. Some of them are really cranking for sure, but some of them really aren't doing as well as their social media metrics might reflect. To be honest, I think like the answer is everywhere. And I think oversaturation, like I think it's a little bit nuanced here because I don't think it means that people can't succeed. I think it means that because it's so cheap to create anything right now, like development wise, I think there's just so many more seeming competition. It's not until you start using a lot of these tools that you realize that some people are just doing it a lot better, and they put a lot more work, money, and resources into creating these. And I think some of these tools really like understand the marketing piece of it and they're like dominating it. I think Lovable, for example, specifically, like really has their stuff together when it comes to branding, user friendliness, all that stuff. There are other no code tools that are probably bigger, like Cursor or Replit. I forgot whether it's Google or Microsoft. One of them, they own a big stake in Cursor. I think it's Microsoft. But I think no code would probably be a big one right now.
Do you think that AI is going to replace people and nobody's going to have a job? Or the scene that I'm reminded of is South Park, where they're like, they took their jobs. Do you think we're all going to be unemployed and have to figure out something else to do? Or
I'm surprised South Park didn't make like a episode about that, but with that guy.
right.
So there's obviously people way more educated to answer this question than me, but and I honestly think the correct answer is, look, long term, I don't know, but in the short term, I do believe there's going to be some short term pain for a lot of white collar workers in very, non-thinking sort of fields. I honestly think it's already happening, but I think there's a lot of factors, right? How your compensation. I don't think everyone's just going to lose their jobs. I think some people are just going to get paid less. I think some people are going to just get forced out, like in a way, to another job. But I really do believe that, even if you lose your job now, maybe it's not the right one for you, this stuff is going to create so much additional GDP and economic value that I believe if you're in a capitalistic society, that money isn't just going to people's pockets. It's going to create new jobs. If a company's profit margin goes up a lot, if they want to keep growing that company, let's invest more into the areas we can't automate. I really do think it's going to better everyone's life once they start embracing it. I don't think it's going to affect a lot of the jobs that people think. Actually, the highest paid entry level or mid-entry level employees are going to be the ones that are most unsafe. Software engineers, people like that. I think salespeople are probably the most safe, in my opinion. And those types of fields where performance related, it's typically performance compensation. The people that are truly talented at those things are going to thrive. If everyone's using all these AI tools, the people that are just using them to complement what they're already doing versus replacing it are going to kill it. And I think software engineering, HR, and admin are the two areas that are probably most at risk right now. And
It's so interesting that you think about software development. It's a field that has created the very thing that is now threatening it.
look, software engineers are really generally pretty brilliant people.
Yeah.
But they also generally make a lot of money, right? Like the starting salary, if you're a software engineer at Facebook, it's at least 200 grand a year or Meta, sorry. And these are like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think everyone who works a skill that can be automated is in theory, those are the types of people that it's imminent because these big companies have more time before they have to deal with the people that are making less money. And also it costs them money to figure out how to truly automate their job. I think AI is, look, like I said, there are people that are way more educated to answer this than me. I'm not a software engineer. I am quite familiar with what is involved in it. But I think a lot of the tools that I'm seeing are very much there. I think if you all, and not to the point of like where you could have a non-software engineer do a software engineer's job, but more so you just don't need as many. If you have 200 talented software engineers, you might as well take your 20 most talented and have them use these tools and just increase your profit margin. That's what I mean. It's not like there's going to be no software engineers. It's just like, it's the type of thing where unless you're the best of the best, you might want to start either building your own company or like doing something else. And I'm sure some people that are software engineers might say he's an idiot after watching this. So I don't know.
That's all right. I think of it as AI almost exactly to your point. AI is a tool and it is going to eliminate some jobs, but the jobs that it eliminates are probably miserable anyway. So do you really want to be doing that the rest of your life? Go find something that's fulfilling. And hopefully you can use an AI tool to be able to help you do it that much better. So you look like a genius. So then you can have more time to pursue your passions, for instance.
100%. And that's part of the reason I think it's going to better everyone's life. Because if all these people are losing their jobs, right? Yeah, maybe some of them will become like disenfranchised and hate the world, but a lot of them are going to start companies. A lot of them are going to, and some of them are going to succeed. And this is just going to be the greatest era of entrepreneurship, like that maybe the country has ever seen. And more importantly, this is like more of a macro historical thing. I think it's going to humble the United States a little bit. I think the United States, the empire that is the United States, has become a little arrogant and divided over the last 10 years or so. And it's not usually until it doesn't really hit people where it hurts until it starts hitting their bank accounts most of the time in history. And I think, and I think it's going to remind people how the ingenuity it took to create this country. Because like you go to India, you go to China, a lot of them are our customers. These people are very ambitious. They're very smart, and AI is a lot more accepted in these places. The AI participation rate in India and China is between 50 and 60%. In the United States, it's like below 30. And, that data, by the way, you can find it on the census website. And what that means is like only like less than 30% of the businesses in this country have a cost of goods sold, like line item for AI, right? And they don't, so really where we're at in the AI cycle in the United States is people are like, yeah, people are using ChatGPT, playing around with it, writing emails, whatever, but no one's actually like really leaning into it, seeing like all the crazy things it could do. And that's happening in these other countries. And it's been happening for a while.
If you could, I guess 2 questions. The first one is, do you think that we might be able to use AI to bring the divisiveness? Because you're right, especially the past couple election cycles, it has been extremely divided to a point where, somebody found out who I either was or had voted for president, and she started berating me. And I was like, without even asking my point of view on things. I'm curious your take on whether or not the use of AI might bring us back to center a little bit as a culture, or is it just going to make us that much more isolated and divided?
Yeah, I think in the short term, which is basically right now, I think people are going to, people that lose their jobs, a lot of them will be angry and they'll use it as another excuse to hate comments under our Twitter post or whatever. But I think when people realize that AI isn't the problem, it's the complacency that's the problem, that's when I think things will start to heal in all of those regards. Because a family friend of mine has a younger son who's going into college, and he asked me like what I thought, like what skills would be like good for him to learn to be like to compete in this AI world. And I was like, listen, I don't even think like any specific skills are like coding or whatever is like matters. That's just depending on what he likes. But the biggest thing is being a self-starter, right? And I think that's what people are lacking. You can't come out of college expecting to work a job and gain experience there. The companies don't have the money and the resources to train you now. They need you to have some experience already. And so whether that means starting a business and failing it, volunteering somewhere, like whatever it means, that's what we're lacking. And I think that those are the types of things that transcend political beliefs, transcend all those types of kind of superficial things, in my opinion. And I think like we're going to go back to being a meritocracy where people can earn it. But I'm not a political leader.
That's an interesting concept of if AI could unseat the traditional power structure of things.
That's how I always viewed it. People always say, oh, our country's a mess right now. And now we got AI around the corner. And I'm thinking like, I think AI is going to be our saving grace. Because whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, whatever, like AI doesn't care who you voted for. If it can replace your job, you're going to have to find something else to do. And I think people are going to be reminded that this is America. Like we defeated the mighty British Empire 2 years ago, you know, and like we are very capable people, regardless of what we wrote, and we just need to stop being complacent and grind hard and want it. And I think AI is going to remind people of that. Because I think before AI, like for a lot of people, depending on where you come from, it was like a very structured path, right? To like wherever you wanted to go. And I think that's all unraveling.
It's all being disrupted.
Exactly.
This is a fun question I've just recently, like the past couple of episodes, started implementing. But if you could go forward in time or backward in time, a significant amount, you can choose, but it's got to be at least, I don't know, at least probably 50 years, up to millions of years. Either way, which one would you do? Actually, there is no limit, except you just can't say, I want to go back to yesterday.
Just which one?
Which one and why? I'm curious.
You know, I would probably go back, and this has nothing to do with business. I would love to be like a fly on the wall when some of my family members were my age. I'm very close to my father, and I was very close to my grandfather. They both passed away in the last 5 years. I guess maybe part of it's emotional, but yeah, I guess also another reason I'll say is I'm unsure what the next 50 years is going to look like. I think maybe I'd want to live in the dog days of America, like the booming whatever periods. I also wouldn't mind seeing the contrast in what life was like before all this connectivity, you know? Yeah. Wait, also, to your question, are you saying I can come back or I can't come back?
Yeah, I think you can. Again, I'm still forming, you know, exactly the question.
Yeah, I think for curiosity's sake, in seeing my family members back, but also for like value's sake, like I think going back would be cool because I don't think the next 50 years is going to be as different from now that people think, you know? Yeah, maybe we'll have flying cars or whatever, this and that, but that skews a lot closer to where we are now than what right now it does to like 1960 or 1970. Like when people had no technology, right? People didn't lock their doors when they left the house, you know what I mean? And no alarm systems. There's so many things people don't even think of. And I think the contrast between those two periods would give you a lot of insight into like, you know, just the world and all those things.
Yeah.
But I assume there's no right answer to that question.
Yeah, no, it's really just a curiosity. That's all. This has been great, man. The hour has flown.
Yeah, for me too.
If people are interested in checking out what you guys have to offer, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, our website is marketingguys.co. You can schedule a call there. I'm happy to give you my email stash. It's just ethan@marketingguys.co.
Sure.
I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Ethan Hochberg. And if you're just curious to see what we post on Twitter, two of the accounts, one is called @thisguyknowsai, and one is @thisdudelikesai. Yeah, any of those places, if you would like to just, even if you don't want to work with us, if you want to just talk about AI, that's totally cool. But thank you again, Stash. It's been great for me too.
It's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Absolutely.
Thanks again. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, man.
All right.
That's it for the Stash Cast. Subscribe, share, and stay ahead in commercial real estate and prop tech. See you next time.